From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana, Siddiqui. First, the headlines. World Muslim leaders to meet about Al-Aqsa Mosque as attacks continue today. At least 16 dead as ISIS claimed blasts rock Afghan cities. South African province devastated by deadly floods. 64% of U.S. student loan borrowers say they can't afford a single payment. Turkish film a tragic comedy on Guantanamo, and a special report on Iftars around the world. Our top story tonight. This morning, Israeli forces raided Al-Aqsa Mosque after dawn prayer again. At least 31 Palestinians were injured. As well, hours later after Friday prayer, tear gas was fired at Muslims hitting Palestinians praying at the Dome of the Rock inside the Al-Aqsa compound. The largest international body after the UN, which is made up of 57 Muslim-majority member states, the OIC said the meeting is being convened at the request of Indonesia. It will be held at the level of permanent representatives. Secretary General Hussein Ibrahim Taha consulted with several international actors to express OIC's condemnation of the Israeli occupation's actions at Al-Aqsa. Taha urged the international community to take urgent action to put an end to the Israeli violations against the holy sites. Tensions have been mounting across Palestinian territories since the beginning of April amid repeated Israeli raids in the occupied West Bank. On Thursday, at least 16 people were killed in 2 Afghan cities by bomb blasts claimed by ISIS. 12 worshippers were killed at a Shia mosque in the northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif, said Ahmed Ziyazindani, Provincial Health Department spokesman. He added 58 people were wounded, including 32 in serious condition. ISIS also claimed responsibility for a second blast in Kunduz yesterday, in which a vehicle blown up near a police station left 4 dead and 18 injured. The number of bombings in Afghanistan has fallen since Taliban fighters seized control of the country last year after ousting the U.S.-backed government. But ISIS has continued with attacks, often against Shia targets. Earlier this week, at least 6 people were killed in twin blasts that hit a boys' school in a Shia neighborhood of the capital, Kabul. Over 400 people are dead and about 40,000 displaced after some of the worst flooding in South Africa's history. Affecting the country's KwaZulu-Natal province, it has devastated the eastern city of Durban, which has a seaport vital to the country's economy. On Monday, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa declared a national state of disaster that is expected to rush emergency aid to the area. South Africa's government is immediately directing $68 million to the effort. Ramaphosa blamed the flooding on climate change. But some critics blame poor infrastructure, as well as the fact that the majority of residents affected lived in makeshift shacks in informal settlements. Officials say the overall disaster declaration is likely to remain in place for 3 months, providing enough time and resources to rebuild. On Tuesday, Malaysian artists distributed hot meals to orphans in northern Syria as part of a charity campaign during Ramadan. Launched by charity groups from the Southeast Asian nation, the campaign distributed aid in the regions along the border between Turkey and Syria. Malaysian singer-songwriter and musician Nur Saleh, singer-songwriter Faisal Tahir, actor and singer Ultimate, and social media star Farali participated in the efforts. Sinta Syria, Malaysia, and Bonian for Youth and Development held an iftar, or fast-breaking meal, for roughly 5,000 people in the Tal Abyad Afrin and Al-Bab regions. A total of 2,000 parcels of food, clothes, stationery, and kitchenware were delivered to people in need. Muslims in the African nation Cameroon, along with others around the world, have certain Ramadan rituals in their cultures. Young Muslim girls in the country's capital of Yaoundé sell traditional sweets outside mosques before iftar, the fast-breaking meal, to keep the Ramadan tradition alive. Here's a report by Saleha Farouk about iftars around the world.
Ramadan is about fasting, but breaking the fast is a tradition of its own. Dishes also vary from region to region. Normally, Muslims sit around making prayers before they break fast at home or at the mosque. But here in Dar al-Noor Islamic Community Center in Manassas, Virginia, they offer a drive-through iftar. They do it every day. It is sponsored by the community. People not only donate money and food items, but also their time as volunteers. Kids, ladies, and the elderly, everyone takes part in commemorating this event. During the pandemic, they even delivered meals to the ones who needed them. Here is a Cairo street in Egypt preparing kebabs for iftar. This street-long table is a mass iftar meal, serving 3,000 people, all free of charge for anyone to come by and enjoy, Muslim or neighbor of faith. But wait, you have to wait for adhan time. Muslims break their fast after sunset. Muslim Americans sponsor iftar around the world. In 2021, Muslims donated $1.8 billion for their zakat charity. Some of that flows for sponsoring iftar for the poor. Most Syrians are displaced. Here they are sitting down together to break their fast in a street surrounded by destroyed buildings and rubble. The iftar meal is benign, served near the city of Al-Bab in the eastern countryside of Aleppo province. Neighbors of other faiths also get involved. Here are Iraqi Christians in Mosul offering iftar meals to their Muslim neighbors. Here are Afghans sitting together in their first Ramadan after the United States left. The simplicity of their iftar is quite visible. This Pakistani mosque is setting up iftar plates for the poor who show up before iftar time. As they hear the adhan, they say Bismillah in the name of God and take a bite. This is Salaha Farouk reporting from the Toronto studios for Muslim Network TV.
At least 14 unmarked graves are suspected at the site of the former Gordon's Indian Residential School in the Canadian province of Saskatchewan. On Wednesday, George Gordon First Nations Chief Byron Bitternose said the area will be a search priority in upcoming months. He added, "The hope is to be able to tell our children the whole story of what their great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and siblings endured." The number of unmarked graves is likely to grow as the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation lists 49 names of children who died at the school. The discovery of nearly 2,000 unmarked graves at former Indian residential schools in the past year has shocked Canadians. News about the conviction of a couple in the U.S. and more domestic news stories after this break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps. I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness. When she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free. They are not. Please stand up. Work with Burma Task Force and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS. Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No me!
No justice!
No me!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
It's Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
A New Jersey couple has been convicted of harassing their Muslim neighbor for several years. On Tuesday, 76-year-old William Ong and his 73-year-old wife Betty were convicted of bias intimidation in Hudson County Superior Court. Investigators determined the Ongs made threatening and harassing statements to a Muslim neighbor about his religion between 2016 and 2018. At the time of the couple's arrest in 2018, William Ong imitated shooting his neighbor with his finger, police said. He also pointed at the victim's 3- and 7-year-old children, making a slashing motion with his finger across his throat. Investigators say Beverly Ong called the victim dirty and told him, "You are going to rot in hell." The Ongs were found guilty of bias intimidation after a 2-day trial. The couple is scheduled to be sentenced June 7th. On April 9th, an unknown person poured urine outside the Muslim Students Association's prayer space at Middlebury College in Vermont. 2 MSA members were inside the prayer room when the vandalism occurred during the early morning hours. The culprit or culprits attempted to forcefully enter the prayer space, according to an email sent to MSA members. Students remained safely inside during the attack, which came as the Muslim community is observing Ramadan. College officials believe the timing of the attack indicates it was a targeted act of discrimination and bias. The college's public safety department is investigating the incident. On Wednesday, the U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments in a Miranda rights case. Vega versus Teco will determine whether a person can seek civil relief when an officer fails to read their Miranda rights. Miranda provides legal protections for potential criminal defendants against self-incrimination. Terrence Teco was a nursing assistant at a Los Angeles medical center when he was accused of sexually assaulting a heavily sedated patient. Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Deputy Carlos Vega questioned Teco at the hospital. After about an hour of questioning, Vega obtained a handwritten confession of the assault from Teco. Teco claims the confession was obtained without Vega Mirandizing him. A new survey has found 64% of student loan borrowers in the United States say they would not currently be able to make a single monthly debt payment if required to. The finding, based on a poll conducted this month by the firm Pay It Off, comes amid mounting calls for universal student debt cancellation. The average monthly student loan payment in the U.S. is $460, according to the Education Data Initiative. The poll was released weeks after the Biden administration announced a 4th extension of the federal student loan repayment moratorium. While advocates and progressive lawmakers welcomed the extension, they argued that continuing to push the end of the moratorium back does nothing to ensure lasting relief. President Joe Biden has thus far dismissed calls to pursue sweeping student loan forgiveness via executive action. An award-winning film telling the story of the Turkish-German mother of a survivor of the U.S. Guantanamo Bay military prison hit Turkish theaters this month. Rabia Kurnaz vs. George W. Bush was released as part of the Istanbul Film Festival. It is about a mother's fight to get justice for her son Murat Kurnaz, who was held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for half a decade. Turkish-German actor Meltem Kaptan, who plays Rabia Kurnaz, told Anadolu Agency the film transcends geographical borders and could be the story of any mother. Directed by Andreas Driessen, the film won 2 awards at this year's Berlinale, an annual public film festival held in Berlin. Kaptan won the Silver Bear for Best Leading Performance. The online dating company behind Tinder and OkCupid won a court battle against a British matchmaking app for Muslims after accusing it of copying its product and services. Muzmatch, the world's largest Muslim dating and marriage app, could lose the right to use its name after the decision favoring Match Group. The UK Intellectual Property and Enterprise Court ruled that Muzmatch infringed the dating giant's trademark. Match Group, which also owns Hinge and Match.com, claims to have pioneered the concept of online dating more than 20 years ago. The U.S. conglomerate accused Muzmatch of using Match and Tinder in its website metadata to drive internet traffic to the platform. Muzmatch's chief executive Shahzad Yunus said he would appeal the judgment and continue the platform, possibly with rebranding. The app has 6 million users worldwide. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps, I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness. When she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free, they are not. Please stand up, work with Burma Task Force, and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Welcome back. To discuss the Russian war on Ukraine and the awful parallels between the earlier wars on Chechnya in the 1990s and Afghanistan in the 1980s, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Samana. Russian invasion of Ukraine continues. So are the reports about war crimes. Most reportings about Russia committing war crimes, except one report verified by New York Times says that Ukrainian soldiers have been recorded shooting wounded prisoners in their custody. Is there a possibility of these war crimes being ever tried? Were war crimes committed in Chechnya were tried, or war crime committed elsewhere? And is there a chance for peace? We have someone from the U.S. Institute of Peace. We'll be talking with him, James Rupert. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you so much, Malik Saab.
James Rupert is foreign affairs editor at the United States Institute for Peace and has reported from 70 different countries, including Washington Post, reporting for Washington Post on Newsday and Bloomberg News. Well, the U.S. Institute of Peace is a retirement program or a serious gig?
Well, I should say first of all, I can speak from my personal experiences, although not officially on behalf of the U.S. Institute of Peace. But the institute is very active, and it's a creation of Congress, by the way, which makes it a public institution that works to reduce violence and conflict overseas. And as you can imagine, we're extremely concerned with the events in Ukraine, just as in so many other places.
So war crimes are being committed and are being reported. Is there a chance of these criminals are ever brought to justice?
Well, this is something that our own people have been exploring and discussing with experts in the field. I think the short answer to that question is that we circumstantially, it's difficult to know, but the chances are better, number one, if we're very careful about and very active about collecting evidence immediately, preserving it. And number two, if we maintain open paths to prosecution across a wide range of options, that is, let's say the International Criminal Court in The Hague, national courts which may have jurisdiction, for example, of course, especially in Ukraine, but in many countries, national jurisdiction can be asserted over war crimes that are committed outside the country. Germany, Spain are a couple of examples of this. And then there are other international institutions, the International Court of Justice, the United Nations Human Rights Council, where accountability can be advanced, these various different courts and institutions having different roles. But we have to work broadly across all of them, is what we are understanding.
International Criminal Court has been charged, of course, in articles, opinion pieces, that they go around hunting war criminals in Africa. But if America commits war crime, or Russia commits a war crime, or any of the, UN Security Council members, those things are simply ignored. So do you think International Criminal Court, or international mechanism is harder on the people who are little guys?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think I am hearing a lot of this same discussion in ways that suggest that we need to look at strengthening the entire system of international accountability on issues of human rights to prevent exactly the problem that you are raising. The permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council, because they have a veto in the Security Council, they have ways to slow down or obstruct accountability accountability questions that are directed at them, and arguably. If we're going to see a really robust international system that enforces justice in our world, we can't have exceptions like that. And so I would say for the longer term, this is a absolutely a live question that smarter people than I are worrying about and working on. And in the immediate term, it underscores this element that I mentioned just a moment ago about needing to work across every possible tribunal, institution of jurisprudence to ensure accountability, so that when there's a weak spot in this institution, we can try, hopefully, to make up for it a bit by working through some other institution.
Tell me this, some people, opinion writers, are comparing what is happening in Ukraine with Russia's war on Chechnya. Do you see some similarities?
Oh, yes, painfully so. I'm sorry to say, Malik Saab, I covered the war in Chechnya as a correspondent for the Washington Post. I have this deep, awful feeling that we have been here before in many wars, and in many wars that have involved the Russian military. Russian tactics in Ukraine are repeating those that we've seen them use over the course of my career since the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in the 1980s, the invasion of Chechnya in the 1990s. The Chechen War in late 1994, the Chechen War began very much in the same way that we've seen this war begin in Ukraine. That is, Russia sent in a force to take over the capital city. In that case, it was Grozny, with a blinding ignorance about the way that local people would respond. And when the Chechens resisted at Grozny, as when the Ukrainians resisted in the assault on Kiev and other cities, the Russians were forced back with terrible losses on both sides. And there has been a habitual Russian military response to that kind of resistance with massive, brutal force, indiscriminate violence against combatant forces and civilians alike, pounding living cities into rubble. I see the images of Kharkiv or Mariupol, and I think of running down Prospect Lenina, Lenin Boulevard. Every Soviet city had a main street called Lenin Boulevard, where in Grozny, the Russian artillery was simply blasting craters into the faces of apartment buildings where people were living, and finding people sheltered in the basements of Grozny. Ethnic Russians, at least as many as ethnic Chechens. Grozny was a ethnically mixed city, and so many of the victims of the Russian assault in Grozny were the elderly Russians, the pensioners, the poor who could not afford to flee when the violence threatened. And so it's much too similar a picture to what we're seeing today in places like, for example, Mariupol.
Chechens in this war seems to be reportedly fighting from the both sides. How do you explain that?
Well, I think we can understand it in the way that we understand divisions across the lines of warfare in so many societies. The way, in the end, that Russia brought an end to its war in Chechnya. Both the first version of the war was fought under the administration of Boris Yeltsin, and the second under that of Vladimir Putin. Effectively, the Putin government did a deal with Chechen forces, Chechen members of the Chechen society, with whom they could make a bargain to have them govern Chechnya on behalf of the Kremlin, and in exchange benefit from the positions of power that they would have as a result. And the administration in Chechnya of Mr. Kadyrov consequently has been a great supporter of the Kremlin for many years. And since 2014, when the first invasion of the Donbass region took place, at the time that Russia seized also Crimea, we've had consistent reports of Chechen fighters in that conflict, fighting on the side of Moscow, and then of course it's entirely we have opponents of the Russian regime from very many countries who, in small numbers, I don't know really anything about the scale of this, but who are present, fighting this war against the Russians because they see it as the same power that has so negatively affected their own countries, be it Georgia, Poland, Ukraine, Chechnya, or others.
United States Institute of Peace, is this the only tax-funded entity in America which has the word peace attached to it?
It's not the only one. I actually myself, as just as an American who had grown up in New Jersey and I had never left the country, I had no exposure to the outside world, and no way really to easily obtain that kind of exposure or education. But we have an organization that benefited me greatly, which is the Peace Corps. And I served as a Peace Corps volunteer for 2 years in Morocco. We were building vocational schools, and I worked in the Marrakesh region, not far from Marrakesh, and had to learn to speak Arabic in order to teach my boys. And I can say that was the greatest education that I had. And 250,000 Americans, since the Peace Corps was founded in the John Kennedy administration, 250,000 Americans have served abroad as volunteers in development work. And I can say I'm deeply grateful for that idea existing in the form of a government agency in the United States. I suppose maybe it's a coincidence that I began my career with the Peace Corps, and years later I've come around to the U.S. Institute of Peace. But we have a few organizations working in this direction.
Well, thank you so much, James Rupert. Nice talking to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Back to you, Samana.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.